Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beers and Boost. I'm Barry,
I'm Zach.
I'm Nathan.
and this week we're doing World War Beer for the first time in a long time. We're back to doing the Americas. We've got some Stone, Fear Movie Lions,
FML.
Never realized that.
Never?
Oh.
Oh, God.
Zach. I never realized that either. Good to know. Some Tank 7,
Disappointed in myself.
and then what I think actually may not qualify as a beer after I poured it, the Ruby Redbird.
It pours like a cider. It really pours like a cider.
It really does. Also, I'm not really sure that's going to be able to qualify for World War beer anyway because Shiner may be huge and they do distribute all over. This may not be a beer that they send out. This was just one of the ones that all three of us could get, so we're going to review that one. I'm pretty sure it's going to get a low grade anyway, but we don't know. Not being prejudiced here.
I've had it once at the brewery, and it was pretty good. But we have seen big differences between at the brewery and out of a glass. So
Very
I
true.
will say I haven't had this, but I do love a good grapefruit.
Mhm.
I do love it.
Well, do we want to start with the grapefruit?
Works for me.
All right, you guys do the drinking. I'll do the reading. Ruby Red Grapefruit, Texas Ruby Red, from the Rio Grande Valley. 0% fat, 3.1 carbs, 95 calories, real ginger and grapefruit. Beer brewed with Texas Ruby Red grapefruits and ginger with natural flavors added. Shiner. That is all we got.
So my favorite came through there. It's the LaCroix effect. There's a very, 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 very light hint of grapefruit over there. Just a like nub of ginger over there, and the rest of it is just like a cheap lager.
Someone added citric acid to a Miller Lite.
Yep, that. And then somebody put one zest, like just single, like I peeled a zest of grapefruit in the entire 55 gallons.
Oh, it was more than that. Their fermentation chambers are fucking massive. So,
If
but they
I,
still only used one.
I was gonna say per 55, they do two, but they do one grapefruit peel per 55 gallons. So
And they just
This is going up to the door of a really nice home, being shut out, and then having to look in the window.
yeah. That's a very good analogy. The the want is there. You can see what it could be, but it's just not.
It's like I get right up to it, and then it's like, no flavor.
Mm-mm.
No, none of that. Just the ambiance.
Mm-hmm.
which it has a good nose.
Yeah, I mean it's not a terrible beer, but what they say on the can or the bottle, I don't get enough of it there to warrant me going out of my way to get this. If I want grapefruit or if I want ginger, there's plenty of other beers that would do it far better than this. Like this is just a, like Nathan said, it's a Miller. Like it's a fine, cheap, knock these back while playing beer pong beer. But that's it.
Oh, I have to say, if this was available at like dollar beer night at the Naturals games, every time.
Deer in the middle of the summer.
Yeah. I would
Yeah.
happily pick that over a PBR or a Miller or a Coors, but it's just not.
It has its place. It's kind of like the Rattler from Sam Adams that we had. Now, granted, the Rattler was better, but it had a lot of lemon zest and peel to it, and I think it even maybe had ginger.
Maybe.
This is not as good as that, but it has that same effect where it has its certain time. You could be like, I'll take a 3% beer and be happy. I mean, speaking of that, yesterday, New Belgium has a new lager out they call the Purist. Now, if you take an image of this ruby red and you see in the light just how absolutely there's
Clear.
almost nothing there. Like it's clear, it's almost clear water with a tinge of yellow. That actually has more color to it than the Purist lager from New Belgium.
Interesting.
It also has more flavor than the purest lager from New Belgium. So if you are wanting a beer-esque drink that is close to beer and is only 3.5%, New Belgium has you covered. And it has its place. It was a great starter beer to. I was making a charcuterie board and crackers. So at 2 o'clock in the afternoon yesterday, I was like, let's have a beer.
That's what we're
So
doing now. Another thing we should mention on the Ruby Redbird is it's 98 calories. It's one of the low-cal beers, which may explain its low flavor, but
I can't go with that just because we've had a multiple thing of session beers on lately, and they've got a lot of flavor for 95 calories.
Also, don't forget, like, your Guinness is only 120. It's not
right.
Like you can get flavor without calories.
Yeah.
Can. But the beers that we've tested, well, not, I wouldn't say recently, some of the low, like below 100 cal, like 1 carb to 2 carb beers have been a little flavorless. Like it's kind of there, but not quite.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Absolutely. You're definitely not going to get as much flavor as you would with, 160 calorie beer that has a whole bunch of sugar and malt and all the good stuff in it. But I think Shiner can do better than that.
Mhm.
Like I really do. Like I would rather have a cider than that kind of a thing. Just because I know there are ciders out there that have the true flavor that could really be there. Now, granted, they're also not 95 calories, but I don't know. I kind of like if I'm me as a beer drinker, if I'm gonna have a low cal beer, I'm probably gonna go for that lighthearted. Just because it gives you a good punch of flavor.
Lighthearted was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I can see there's people out there like that love the hard seltzers. Like they really like that's a huge thing. There's a reason why Budweiser, I forget the name of Budweiser, the actual company that is them.
AB InBev.
Yes, AB InBev. They're making hard seltzers now to compete with that market. They gave up on competing with the craft brewers to compete with the hard seltzer market. So I can see the people out there that would love this beer. So,
Drink.
Yeah.
Adult beverage.
You have to do the full fingers there, Nathan. You can't do the halves. You have to do the fulls. Well, do we want to go back for a second round of the Ruby Grid and see if some more flavors come through, or?
We can.
Maybe later.
I forgot to get the thermometer. I can run and grab it if you guys want.
We'll be fine.
Okay.
So the next up is, do we want to do a true, legit farmhouse saison, like classic to the style, like everybody else that calls their beer a saison is really just a hodgepodge, or do we want to do the Fear Movie Lions?
Nathan's already drinking it.
Saison.
Okay.
Just saying.
Also, can we talk about this pour? That's a solid, like, inch of head. Like, that's what a beer should always look like.
Zach loves his head.
Only an inch, just the tip.
Okay, so Tank 7 is a true American saison. It's 8.5%, and it is 38 IBUs. It's pretty much all you say. Classic bottle. I'm sure you've seen it. They have it in cans now. Actually, Liquor World just got their second round of cans in.
Cans of Tank 7?
Yeah, they make cans of Tank 7. I'd like to try it because the bottle always gives a really interesting carbonation. I'm curious how the canning process is different in that. But yes, anybody's saison should be based off of this idea of a farmhouse saison, because this is a classic.
This is one of my favorite beers, period. We talked about this last week about it being maybe a 1 seed, like an easy 1 seed when it comes to the tournament. I love this beer.
And also the nose, like if you could give me a candle that smelled like this, I would buy a pallet of it, and that's all I would ever burn in the house, because I would be okay with my house smelling like this always.
I'm going to go ask my wife what she thinks of this. 1 second.
Okay. While he's doing that, I will say my wife hates saisons. Every one I've tried to get her to try, she won't drink it. She does not like them.
Interesting, because Rachel loves Tank 7 as well.
Oh,
Or not as well. I'm going to assume Eileen likes this, but Rachel's in
maybe.
our boat with the love of the Tank 7.
Yeah.
Um, I do have to say that we're skipping Nathan here. Let's load Nathan's face up if we can from last week.
Whoop.
And but uh, it's so hard to pinpoint the flavors that you get out of this beer.
It is. I had one last night, and it's been a while since I've had a Saison or a Tank 7. And when you drink Pilsners or lagers or stouts or IPAs and then go to a farmhouse or a Saison, the flavors are so wildly different from everything else. Everything else has like a hint of this one or that one. You get, bits of them. This one is just, this is left field. This is Nathan's beer.
This is my beer. It's not my wife's beer.
She didn't like it?
Mm-mm.
Hmm.
Which I'm like, ugh. Those divorce papers are going to be weird to write.
Tammy won't drink it either.
Extenuating circumstances and irreconcilable differences.
That's the one.
You put some thought into that. You know these big words for what could work in a divorce court, Barry. What's on your mind?
Those are the most common ones.
Right, Barry. All right, cool.
But no, like, so what Zach was saying about with the Saison, so if you've never had one, super, super different beer. Like, it's like no other beer out there. But all the flavor, well, not all, 90% of the flavor comes from the yeast strand. It's not a malt beer. It is not a hop beer. Like, there's hops there. You can definitely get some of the hop effect. And that's what helps lend itself to some of the actual grassy undertones from the yeast. But this beer is yeast forward. 95% of the flavor is, and that's how you get such a different beer. It's a different type of yeast strand. It's actually a farmhouse strand, and it's a slight tartness to it, a slight acidicness to it, some grassiness. There's so many different flavors. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what is there.
There's almost like a slight funk to it as well.
Mm-hmm.
I should have known Eileen does not like Belgians. And I just yeast forward. That's all I need.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I need in a beer.
It's got the bready aspects of what a yeast flavor would, like initial, like amount of little bit of yeast characteristics to it, but the back end is just so complex with lots of different nuances. You get a little bit of clove in there, kind of reminiscent of a Hefeweizen, but not quite to that extent. Definitely no banana like you would get in some Hefeweizen. Like I said, the grassy undertones that are there, some lemon, a little bit of lemon zest in there. It's just maybe even a little bit of peppercorn. Like, this is a fantastically nuanced beer.
I could kind of get that. What you were saying about the hops being there, the way I guess my analogy would be how you put like a sprinkle of salt into something sweet to bring out the flavor. That's basically the hops are there just to kind of bring some flavors out. They are not a major player in the flavor.
100% agree.
I think it's balanced. I mean, you have some hoppiness, you have some yeastiness, you have some maltiness. It's all there, which I guess is the point. But at the same time, like, I love this beer. It's so good.
It all works in unison. Like, we have that a lot where we talk about a beer has flavor at the front and it's great, and the back end it's not, or like at the front you're kind of disappointed, in the back end you're like coming back to it a minute later and you're like, that's really good. There's a lot of different beers that don't jive all the way through. This beer does.
Mm-hmm.
Every bit of the drink is fantastic, and I've never once, and I've had a lot of Tank 7s, had a glass, a tap, a can, a bottle taste any bit different than the one I'm drinking right now.
I will say this. I think Saisons, just having been like to the Kansas City Microbrew Festival when we go there, they're shit. Like, I'm sorry, like, they're just awful. And I've never had a good one except for this one. Like, one that I was just like, oh, I'll drink that again.
Yeah.
This one alone.
Yeah, I generally like a farmhouse or Saison, and This is the only consistent one because, yeah, I've run into that situation where 70% of the ones that I've tried I've not been a huge fan of. And we've said it before with Boulevard. When you get their heavy hitters, they are great. And
Absolutely.
I mean, Tank
That's
7,
exactly that's exactly what I was gonna say. Like this is not a cheap six pack. It's $15 for this six pack.
worth it though.
But it is worth like I would pay $20 for this six pack and be okay. Like it's just a fantastic beer and it hits so many notes. Like you could if you only wanted one beer for the weekend or whatever, this would cover it. If you wanted to drink 3 beers and get drunk, this would cover it. If you
Yeah.
wanted to drink a beer and enjoy the outside aromas with you, this could do it. Like there's no place this beer wouldn't work. It's just so good. And like we said, Nathan, and like you brought up again, this is a sneaky one seed. But so sneaky enough to where like we could see it win.
Could. We've had some pretty good beers on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some of the German lagers, Hefes, even the British ones, I mean, this is up there in terms of flavor, in terms of just composition. Yeah, no, this is fun. This is fun. This is why we do this podcast.
Yeah. Speaking of, like, we've talked about when we did the UK stuff, how their flavors are so different. This one actually kind of leans in that direction, which may be why we're so drawn to it. Because we've been growing up drinking Miller and Torpedo and all the normal, like, US beers. This one leans a little the other direction.
There's definitely some aspects of Sam Smith's open fermentation, excuse me, when it comes to this. I mean, just the floral aspects alone definitely lend itself to that kind of thought.
Absolutely. Like both of those talking points are spot on to what I was thinking about. Like Sam Smith's open fermentation, how all of their beers have a definite yeast kick characteristics, and sometimes depending on which beer you're drinking is the forefront of the flavor. And that's where this kind of comes from. And I like your analogy there, Zach, where kind of the hinting towards the British style beer, which is another reason why I think this was going to go very far in the tournament. So, let's come back for a second round of sips. Let's do Fear Movie Lions a little bit of justice.
Okay.
It's a good beer. Let's not forget about it.
No, it's a great beer.
So, Fear Movie Lions. I'll do the reading. You guys are the drinking. Oh yeah, this is really long.
It's
there's
stone.
a 3x3. There's a 3x3 meter square on our Richmond, Virginia brewery with 3 words painted on it. What are those 3 words exactly? For this, oh yeah, forget. What 3 words? Exactly. That's what it says. It always throws me every time. But those are the words on it. What 3 words? Either way, for the uninitiated, that's what 3 words is a global addressing system to bring locations to the previously unlocatable. Inspired by the positive impact of this system, we decided to name this IPA after a 3-meter square in the brewery where it was created. Check it out. So now, when someone says to you, what 3 words, you can reply with your own answer. If it's Fear Movie Lions, we'll see you here. I think this is like an 8.5% beer as well. Yeah, 8.5%. Double IPA.
That explanation continues to befuddle me to no end. This is a really good IPA.
Yeah. And I'm curious, while you were reading that, I got up to the mic and was prepared to say 3 words, and Nathan saw it, shook his head, we both stopped and started chuckling, and I'm wondering if he knew what I was about to say.
I feel like I do, but go ahead and say it.
I love you.
No, agreed. I love you too.
Aww.
So I gotta say, I'm holding this up to the glass, holding the glass up to the light that I have shining on my face here, and the yeast particles are it's not quite reminiscent of a pseudosu, where it had the giant cake at the bottom, but the amount of yeast particles that are floating through are fantastic and definite addition to the beer flavors.
It's got a pretty decent cake on the bottom.
It's not bad. It's no pseudo soup.
No.
Pseudo soup is the ultimate, but Dangstone, it's a good IPA.
And it doesn't taste like every other Stone beer.
It's the one that doesn't.
Right.
Oh, we've done that testing before. This is the one that's like, oh, that's different.
Yeah.
Everything else? No.
There's still that malty and earthy, bitter undertone to it, but it's got a citrusy, upfront kind of aspect. It's definitely got a little bit of yeast flavor going on. It's not as clean as far as like subtled. Like there's differences to the taste aspects of it. It doesn't just finish away. It kind of lingers there. The head retention, spot on.
Pretty damn good compared to the Ruby Red.
Yeah. The color's great. It's got just a slight hint of orange and caramel to the coloring on it. I mean, other than the fact it's a little bit too sweet.
It is a little sweet.
It's a damn good IPA.
I think I'm the only one that thinks that the sweetness is really offset by the bitterness. Like, this is a very bitter beer.
It is, and it works very well together, but it is quite sweet for an IPA, or is it an IPA or a double IPA? I wasn't paying attention.
IPA.
It's a double.
Yeah.
Which most doubles that we've had are a little sweeter. This one, I think, balances a little better than some of them.
Definitely, like Nathan said, it's definitely bitter. This is a bitter punch. Up front, through the end, it's there. It's just the slight, when you kind of let it go for a minute and you don't sip it, you get a little bit of bitter hanging out in the back area, but your tongue is still fairly sweet, in my opinion. But that doesn't make it bad. I actually think it's a real, like, it doesn't hide the fact that it's 8.5%, is what I'm getting at. Because 8.5% beers are generally pretty sweet. We've had them on before, where like some stouts that are 9% that are just sugar cakes. This is not. It's well done.
Stone can brew. They're so consistent. They usually make the same beer over and over, and then add a little bit of one flavor here and there. This is definitely a big shift from the rest of them. But
I think this and the Saison that we tried before it, they hide that alcohol a little bit more than others. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's there, but it's almost like, well, yeah, of course it's there. This is part of the beer. Mm-hmm. Like, all right, cool.
Yeah, I am drinking an alcoholic beverage. I get that. It's not like 120 minute where it's like, oh, this is pure grain alcohol with sugar.
By the way, Macadoodles had 120 minute on Build Your Own Six Pack. I almost got one.
Was it like a $9 bottle?
It was like $7. It was almost worth it. Almost.
I do. That beer is. This is totally off subject. It's super sweet. It's super punchy. You should not drink a bottle by yourself. But if you can split one between 2 or 3 people, I definitely think you should go out and try 120 minute if you can find it. But it's a rough beer.
It's an intense one.
Yeah, it's like a half pint of whiskey.
Pretty much.
You split it between 3 people.
Yeah. I do have to say that, Nathan, your whole idea of them hiding their alcohol is very, very prominent. Like, you cannot really tell that they're 8.5%. And I do have to say that, like I said, we've mentioned this a lot of times, but this is a podcast about beers and about cars, but never together. And that's part of the reason why we separated our episodes, to even more justify the split between beers and cars. We love 2 things of the world, but we don't do it together. And I have to say that, Zach, whenever we record at your house studio, because I mean we have made your office into a studio, that Nathan and I never really drink too much. Like, we have 2 or 3 sips of each beer, good enough to taste it and move on.
And I get to finish the rest.
As a person who is drinking both 8.5% beers, holy shit, I'm gonna be drunk at 4 o'clock on a Sunday.
Yeah, I can kind of, like, I've had like a third of each of the heavy hitters, and it's like, oh yeah.
I haven't had a third of either one yet. I'm gonna be totally drunk.
I also had
Eileen doesn't want any of these.
I had a Voodoo Ranger Imperial right before recording as well. So
Your liver is kaput.
what liver?
So all I can say is when we did the car episode, my face was alarmingly close to the color of my walls. Now it's so red, doesn't matter.
I mean, you can
I've
kinda
only
tell.
had 6.
It doesn't help. Whenever the photo of the S12 pops up, when it's just a red background, it's just like, oh god, he's drunk.
Yeah. Double party.
Are we doing
Double
this?
party.
We're doing it.
No, I can't do that. I can't.
No,
combine the two
no,
beers.
these glasses. Can you tell this is also an evening recording for us? Our afternoon recordings are always so just like all over the damn place.
It's worth it.
But that's what people need in this life. Everybody's all fucked up right now. Nobody knows what's going on. So just the podcast doesn't have to be strictly together.
You guys, you're my favorite people. You're just the best. Just love it all.
So let's move it to the ruby red, shall we? And actually get some grades in.
Where are we? What? Huh? Okay.
How I can taste the ruby red after the Fear movie, I'm not sure if it's going to actually happen.
It's gonna be corn water. So, as Barry almost has a spit take, I just want to say I was sitting here 2 or 3 days ago, leaned back in my chair, the lights on, and I look up at the wall behind the computer, up near the top of the bookshelf. There's fucking splatters of beer up there. I am still finding beer from when you spilt it.
I didn't spill it. No. The mixer exploded it. I took it off the thing, and it fell. Well, as I was taking it off, the other one fell up. Whatever. The canister that holds the panes didn't work. Onto the mixer, and just explosion.
Yeah, I can fucking tell.
The beer fell and exploded. It went everywhere. Also, Eileen was there, and I think we should blame it on her.
Is she within earshot?
Absolutely not. The door's closed.
I can't really taste this beer.
So this lost flavor. We should point that out.
Like, I was just thinking, I can't taste anything. I can't tell if this is a beer or what.
Like, I keep drinking it, just like, oh, I'm kind of thirsty. Maybe I need some water. I'll just drink this.
If I wanted water that tasted like grapefruit and yeast, yeah, that's the one.
It lost
I
so
would
much.
choose I think I would choose LaCroix. Like, I've had their grapefruit LaCroix, and they're okay, but
The
it's about
grapefruit
the same as this.
grapefruit bubbly has more flavor than that does now.
Mm.
I mean, it's still. I mean, it's drinkable. If you need a 3%, I'm on the lake, I need something with alcohol, but I don't want to get hammered. It would work, but there's plenty of better options.
I would drink a six-pack of this and not be hammered. So, just saying that.
I mean, it's a very low ABV.
It's a meal supplement. If you are trying to, hang on, hear me out. If you are trying to like fake your stomach into being full, what you do is you chug 4 of these when they're super carbonated, and you're like, oh man, I'm really full now because of all the air. But you actually have no nutrients and no carbs and nothing. So if you want to like do an extreme,
There's like no carbonation.
that's pretty carbonated.
I had to shake it to get some bubbles out.
I'm watching the bubbles.
There's some bubbles.
Okay, maybe my can is overcarbonated.
Some. You'd
We
get
are
more
drinking
from.
3 different ones.
Yeah. Eh, I don't know. I don't think it's worth the entry price with the other options around. It's not terrible. It's not like getting a Miller and being disappointed and hating yourself, but it's not. Why spend however much on a 6-pack for that when you can just go and get Lighthearted, or hell, even Day Drinker from Lagunitas? I think had more going on than that.
Well, also we were just talking about it being not carbonated. My other 2 beers still have head.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Hang on now. Head retention is not based solely on carbonation. Head retention is based on ingredients in the beer as well as carbonation quality.
Oh, someone's a snob.
Oh, here's the brewer again.
Oh, good lord.
Gordlord.
Anyway, I think Warlord Barry, Gordlord. um,
Good lord. Indeed.
I think we should go ahead and give this a grade, but in my opinion, this is not a beer, so it doesn't get a grade. I think this is a just fine beer. If you're into that kind of idea, and I put that in quotation marks for our podcast listeners, but it is not a beer. So I think that gets an NA in my opinion.
I think it's an NA as well. I think, though, there's enough flavor here compared to other things to say if all you're wanting is a carbonated alcohol, like semi fruit flavored thing, this is like a 1.5 or 2. Like, it's not it's not horrible in terms of that kind of thing. It's just not a beer.
There are better versions of that out there.
Mm-hmm. And even I do like it more than the hard seltzers. Sometimes they have like a sickly sweet coating that stays on your tongue. This doesn't quite do that, so I might pick this over like what's that, White Claw or whatever the hell. But yeah, I don't think this fits in World War beer. I don't think it's really a beer.
Right then, so 3 NAs.
Yeah. If I had to give it a score, it'd probably be a 175 on a beer scale. Just because it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit in. It's the ugly duckling.
Well, let's move it back onto something that does fit in. It's Tank 7, and there's a beautiful head retention and yeast. Oh, yeast floating goodness.
All of us just did the same thing.
Same time. Same time, bro. Same time.
Flavors came out a little bit. Still balanced. Clean finish. Leaves a little bitter. But you don't feel like there's something stuck in your mouth.
I'll throw out a score to begin with. I think as a Saison, which is really, you have your vegetational aspects, your really good alcohol in this one, I'm going to go 4.5.
5?
What? Say that again?
I said not a 5?
You are really quiet all of a sudden.
Not a 5?
You're still really quiet.
Not 5. 4.5.
So why not a 5, Nathan?
Mine is the sweetness aspect. It's just a little too sweet for me.
Okay.
But that's it. That honestly, that is it. It could be 4.75. You could talk me into that.
Okay. I have to say that. Zach, do you want to grade or do you want me to grade? What you doing?
You go ahead. I'm double checking on the flavor profile for a Saison. See what it should be.
Well, then my score may change, but I don't think it will. I think this is, if not the perfect Saison, I'm not sure who's better. I do agree with you, Nathan, with that sweet aftertaste, but that actually only comes in when it's warmed. and I kind of really enjoy that. Personal preference wise, I think that's a full on 5. I like the added sweetness to cut through the yeastiness and through the grassiness that you get of it. I think the lemon disappeared a little bit from the early on, which kind of sucks. I really enjoyed the lemon aspect to it, but that doesn't mean it's less. I think other flavors became more pronounced. I think the complexity is still at the top, like a super complex beer. This is not a beginner beer. I think this is a beer that is just it's kind of like the hemp beers that we've been talking about. When you want something different, but you want something good, what do you go for? You kind of go for a Tank 7. It's like what I was telling the guy at Liquor World when I bought it. He was like, "Oh, getting some Tank 7. You know, we got those in cans." And I was like, "Well, yeah, you gotta have a Tank 7 every once in a while. You can't have this every day of your life. You'll kind of get burnt out on that flavor, just like you would with the hemp beer. But when you want something that's got nuance to it and complexity, and you don't want to just be like, I'm putting back a beer, you want to enjoy it and sip it and experience it. It's so good. I don't see how I don't give it a 5, in my opinion. Like,
I see what you're saying. I honestly, between if I just go and get beer, like if I just want to spend money on beer, it's this or New Belgium's Tripel. What is that doing?
I was
Weirdo.
making it rain,
Okay.
getting beer.
I mean, I have no argument against this being a 5. It's my favorite beer.
yeah.
Like straight up. Like I just think there is a sweetness to it where I'm like, if I was rating other beers, I think I'm more harsh on this because it is my favorite beer.
Let's see that.
So you've convinced me. 4.75.
I was actually kind of thinking the same. So I did a couple places. They talked about Tank 7. But the best kind of description I can find, other than they have a wide range, is they taste yeasty, fruity, estery, spicy, clovey. Nothing about the sweetness. So if we are going for something that's yeasty with a little bit of fruit, a little bit of spices.
I see what you're saying, Zach, and absolutely. Like, even when it was cold, you got the spiciness, the yeastiness, the esteriness, a little bit of that lemon, a little bit of that clove. You got all the characteristics to it. The sweetness wasn't there just yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to say the only... Go ahead.
Like I say, are we going to count fruitiness? Are we going to add a little bit of fruity sweet? Because most fruits have some kind of sweetness.
The fruitiness, in my opinion, was there from lemon, which kind of disappeared and opened up more to a sweet aspect. Now, granted, the whole reason I would think it's sweet is it's because it's 8.5%.
Yeah.
Like, if you got a 5.7% Saison, it's not going to... It also may not have the same actual aspects to it, but I think as far as the notes of what a Saison go, and when you're talking about control groups, like, this is it. I'm not trying to say that the Tank, hey, you guys suck because you're not giving a high enough score. Tank 7.5 is a huge score, but I'm just saying, like, this is a damn good beer, and I think you guys are saying the same thing. It's just...
Yeah, I'm trying to decide if... Like, I love this beer. I would happily give it a 5. But if a Saison shouldn't have that little bit of sweetness, if that should be overtaken by more clove or cardamom, something, does that knock it down to a 4.75? No one talks about sweetness. They just say dry, fruity, yeasty, earthy.
Again, I'll come back to the fact that it's 8.5%.
Yeah, and which is at the top of the range from Saison, from what I can find.
I've seen some 11% Saisons, like, but that's because people just claim, oh, I don't know what the hell this beer is.
Yeah,
Saison.
I think that's part of the point of a saison is it's a yeast forward beer with some spices, with a decent alcohol content. And that's pretty much it. So
We've left Nathan out of the conversation. Nathan, do you have anything else to add?
Drink this. Yeah, that's what I got. Like, this is just a good beer. If you don't like this beer, I don't know what you want in a beer. Like, maybe you are just into hoppy beers and that's all you want. That's fine. But if you want flavor, if you want yeast, I love yeast. It's my favorite thing about a beer. Like, that's me out of all the three of us. That's me. Maltiness. It's all there. If you don't want a highly alcoholic beer, I can understand why you're not wanting this. Other than that, fuck off.
Heard it here first. If you don't like Tank 7, fuck off.
is that our new tagline?
All right, so that's some super high scores for Tank 7. Of World War Beer, that's...
I haven't rated it officially yet.
Oh, I thought you gave it a 4.75.
I am deliberating still, and after seeing how all over the place the flavor profile could be and how much I like this beer, I'm gonna give it a 5.
So I have to say, on World War Beer, we're establishing scores to get them into the bracket. The bracket is going to be personal preference. It's got to be. Like, we can't go over scores. It's got to be like, what do I want, this or this?
Well, so how we're going to create the bracket, which we'll discuss this off show, but how we'll create the bracket is based on score. All right? And then if it's so many of them, we'll deliberate, maybe have a virtual pint together about the beer, saying, okay, is this worthy? Because we may have like 6 or 7 beers that quite maybe make the cut, maybe don't. But because we are adding in our preference score into World War Beer, I think we have to go off score from what's on our spreadsheet.
We have given some higher scores based on how well they did it. So that may boost them up into the possible there, but we may not like them, so might have to cut them.
Think that our actual like advancing in the tournament is going to heavily weigh more into our personal preference because it got to the the round of 64 or whatever based on personal preference and its quality of what that beer is. But
I see it more as a Michelin star kind of thing. Like if they get into the tournament, that is a 2 Michelin star. You should drink this beer. You should try it. If they're in the top 8, go out of your way to try this beer. Just do it.
Drive to the next state over if they get distribution of Stone and you don't, or something like that.
I'm with you, Nathan. I'm with all of that, and we've got some massive deliberation right now, but we're not done. Let's hit Fear Movie Lions, guys.
This is gonna be longer than the Cars episode, and I'm gonna be drunker.
I am drinking so much more now that I'm at home.
Do you see how much of the fucking Tank 7 I drank?
Same here, buddy.
Who wants to play poker after this?
I'll play. I love poker, but so Fear Movie Lions. My first hit, huge hit of flavors: grass, apricot, and mango.
Same.
Yeah.
And then that late back end of bitter. Just so late.
It comes on very late. But it hits you in those the back of the tongue the best way I can describe it is on the back of your tongue. You got to do the fingers.
Fear movie lines like Stone. I love Arrogant Bastard. The Enjoy by 420. A lot of the stuff Stone makes is really, really good. Fear Movie Lions is their best beer. This is just fucking phenomenal. This is a double IPA.
Through and through.
Ah, that's good.
Should I make sure we have the proper definition of double IPA?
I think the proper definition of double IPA is really IPA.
Well, it's kind of like Saison in that it depends on your classification of IPA. I mean, you can have a double New England IPA if you want, but the double IPA, the classic form, is it's going to be over 8%. It's going to have over 60 to 80 IBUs, generally more closer to your 90 and 100 range. I've even seen double IPAs that have 120 IBUs. Now, granted, those are rare and not so much made anymore, but Super Doozy was one of those by Mother's, and oh my god, was it good. I think it was like 118 IBUs. But the flavor profile depends widely on your hops. It's going to be sweet, it's going to have a little malty, and it's going to have a ton of bitter unit. Then the alcohol has to be there. And that's pretty much it. A double IPA is a very ranged idea. Now, saying all that, that comes from a person who has brewed a lot and knows Brewers Association classifications, but doesn't read them like the Bible. Zach, did I get that right?
So the first one I found was strong hop aroma. Got it. Strong hop flavor. Got it at the end. Strong hoppiness. Near the end, yeah. Grapefruit, resin, pine, lemon, honey.
It's got pine. It's there.
It does, but it's not like a rebel.
No.
And that's because I honestly think that style of beer has gone extinct. People don't make piney resiny beers anymore.
Can you still get
I had a Rebel a couple months ago.
And was it all it's cracked up to be?
It's the best. It's so good.
I haven't had it in a solid 2 years, and I miss it.
I don't know why we get it. We don't get it, but Oklahoma does. My dad brought some up. That was it.
Yeah, we used to get it, but we haven't gotten it since this podcast started, and this podcast has been going for 3 years. So,
All right, so here's another one. If we want to go through it, or we can just score it and go.
Let's do it.
All right, so presents a strong and varied hop flavor with likely qualities being that of an American or New World hops, floral, citrus, stone fruit, spicy, pine resin, tropical fruit, berry, and melon. Or melon, I should say. Hop bitterness can be extremely high. Okay. Malts, if noticeable, will be restrained and will be of a clean, grainy character with possible signs of caramel and toasty flavors possible. Some fruitiness along the lines of low to medium is acceptable. Dry to medium dry finish with bitterness riding long into the finish, like we said that, though not coming through as harsh even in the aftertaste. Some light, clean alcohol flavors are acceptable, but should not run hot. So it shouldn't be, this is alcohol.
yeah.
May also be slightly sulfury, though it's not common. Oaky flavors do not have a place in this style. So nothing oaky. Floral, citrus, stone fruit, pine, resin, malty, dry.
That oaky note, saying it's not a part of that knocks out a lot of things.
Yeah. I gotta say, though, off of that reading, which sounds more like the actual Brewers Association definition of it, the Brewers
Kegerator?
scoring, judging, this gets a 5 based on that. Like it meets the stone fruit, it meets the bitter, it meets the grassy, it meets the melony. I mean, when the first thing I said was apricot and
Floral, stone, citrus, spicy, pine, tropical, berry, melon.
The floral stone citrus
mango,
pine. That's there.
the apricot, the mango, the grassiness, that's all prevalent. The malt doesn't really exist. The bitterness comes from the earthiness of the hop. Like grade wise, that's a 5.
It does say malt if noticeable. So if we don't notice it, we can nix it from the ranking.
I don't think. I think that the malt is enough there to keep that head because you cannot keep a head like that without having.
Yeah,
It's
it does.
it is
very well.
Grace based on a brewer's scoring. That's a 5, and like 100 of 100. Like if we want to change the grading up for that alone, like that, based on the brewer's guide to brewing, that's a 5. Now, personal preference for me for a double IPA, not quite there. I'd like a little bit more bitter. So I would say for me, adding in personal preference and perfection of style, this is a 4.75. I want just a little bit more bitter. I'd like the arrogant bastard level of bitter for
That's
a double
heavy
IPA.
level.
Yeah, for a double IPA though. Like I love a truly just bitter punch of stuff for a double IPA. Now, there's 1,000 different styles of double IPAs, just like there's 1,000 different styles of regular IPAs. IPAs are varied based on hops. This is great. 4.75.
I agree. 4.75.
This is a 5 to me. This is a great beer.
It is a great beer. I think.
And
I gave it a
also,
5.
so is the Saison. I gotta say, Tank 7 is a 5.
Oh, you moved up?
Yep. Both of these.
I think we've done Fear Movie Lines before, and I think we all gave it a 5 before. So, and we also didn't spend fucking 10 minutes talking about it before. So,
Well, the only reason I wanted to go super heavy in it is because we are about to narrow down to the tournament. And if we don't get true grades for this, like, my calculations for all this shit is going to take days. That's what I'm saying. Like,
glad it's you.
We have 153 beers here that I have to go through. So, yay me. But we will get that to you, and we will get the tournament going soon for World War Beer. So we can finally find out who makes the best beer. And hopefully, after all this COVID shit is over, they'll still be around.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully we can actually see each other, because I haven't seen you guys in a month and a half, 2 months.
Yeah.
Sadly, it hasn't been months. It's just been... March and April have seemed like 14 months. That's it.
Yeah. My knowledge of time has just, or my perception of time has just gone out the window.
Out that window right there.
Yeah, or that one.
That one.
There you go.
Perfect.
I've got some time babies and a pepper hanging out in this one.
That is a weird sexual euphemism, but okay.
Time, THYME. Little seedlings. I had little time seedlings.
Hey, no, you're not opening the door to Ferrari or whatever the fuck it was from 3 weeks ago. Oh, it was Lamborghini.
There it is.
The double dicks.
All right, I think it's time for us to grab a snack, get some water, and play some poker.
All right.
Ooh, poker sounds good.
Also, my laptop's dying anyway, so thanks, guys.
See you later.
Have a great week.
Oh, can you tell that we've been having 8% beers?